Sorry, I've got to do a lot of muting and everything with our fantastic stuff. Good morning. It's morning where we are. Sian and I are coming to you from Proper Romance. We're happy to have you with us today. It's morning for us, but in the UK, it's probably about 4, 5 o'clock. I don't know.
Yeah,
we've had daylight
rolling into the evening. Yeah,
we're on standard time, so who knows where we're at right now? But it's getting there into the evening time. What are we here to celebrate, Sian?
Guy Fawkes Night.
Guy Fawkes Night, which will be kicking off very shortly over there in the UK. So thanks for joining me, Sian. I'm really excited to be chatting to you today about your upcoming book that comes out in April. But this is really exciting because this is a brand new series for Sian and her first book ever with Proper Romance. And so I know a lot of you out there, you love Sian, you're used to reading her historical romances and all of that stuff with wholesome romance. So we're really excited that you're with us and you're going to be launching this book. We're going to dive right in because we've got a lot to talk about. Okay. So let's get this up here. So you may have seen this book cover out there. We have done a cover reveal and you may have seen it out, on the internet. And it is available to pre-order already, which is awesome. And this series, I just want to go a little bit back in time. So when Sian told me that she'd been asked to write this story and this series and kind of the background into it, I mean, I was excited anyway, because Sian writes such good books. But when she told me what the theme was going to be for this book, I pretty much flipped out, didn't I, Sian?
Yes, you did. I think it was something like, "No, you're not. Shut up."
And I was so excited, and I think the reason that I was so excited about this, and there's a reason why you've got two Brits on this today. I know I've not been around you guys and done any interviews for a long time on the internet, but I was so excited because this theme hits like one of the biggest, I feel like, historical moments in British history. I know there's been a lot. We have a lot of cool history in the UK, and also I feel like no one ever understands what I'm talking about when I talk about Guy Fawkes. When I have neighbors and friends and I'm celebrating on the 5th of November, they're like, what is that? And so I'm so excited that Sian's going to be able to share this story with you and you're going to learn a little bit more about it. But let's just, I just want in there, I normally ask, to let us know where you're watching from. But today I want to know what you know about, well, let's say, what do you know about this story in British history? And just drop it in the comments. What do you know about Guy Fawkes?
Guy Fawkes. Yeah.
And while you're doing that, Sian, I'm going to have you just jump in and talk about what this is. It's time slip, we know that, but give us a little bit more details behind that.
Okay, so I actually had to learn this myself at the very beginning of this writing journey, the difference between a time slip and a time travel. A time slip, which is the new subgenre at Proper Romance, is when somebody travels forward or backward in time and it's unintentional. So it's not like they're getting in a TARDIS or they're using flu powder or any of those other premeditated ways of traveling. This is something that they do that happens to them without them realizing it's going to happen. And so that, of course, adds to the drama a little bit, because suddenly you have somebody somewhere where they're completely out of their comfort zone. So it's exciting because it enables an author to take somebody from one time and put them in another. But I will say that it was a lot more difficult to write than I had anticipated. And partly that's because when you're writing a historical, you kind of get in the groove of how they speak, and there's a cadence to the type of language that they're using. So on one page, when you have somebody who is from contemporary England with somebody who is from the 1600s England, and you're flipping back and forth, the way that they're speaking, it just kind of messes with your head a little bit. And so it was a challenge, but it was really exciting because this was a story that I have had in the back of my head for a long time. Not necessarily the time slip portion of it, but I have wanted to share the Guy Fawkes story for exactly the reasons that you talked about. The fact that it's such a big deal in the UK and so not known outside of the country. And then to be able to start this subgenre with Sarah Eden, who is so phenomenal and so good at what she does. It's just been such a fun thing.
Well, we're going to dive into the 1600s in a little bit, but I wanted you just to give us the series title is McQuivey's Costume Shop Romance. I would just like you to give people a little bit more insight into what this costume shop is without too many spoilers, because
All right.
that would ruin it for everybody.
Okay, well, on one of my recent trips to London, I discovered a little square in London. It's near St. James's Palace, and it is supposedly the smallest public square in London. And it's really old. Like, the buildings outside it are probably from late 1500s, early 1600s. And you go down this little alley and you come into this little tiny square. And I remember walking in there thinking, there are lots of stories in here. I just don't know what they are, but there are a lot of stories in here. And so when I was approached about doing a time slip, it took me a little while to figure out how to get my characters back in time. And then this idea came, and it was kind of centered around this little square that I had visited in London. So Mrs. McQuivey's costume shop is in this little square. And it's an old costume shop that is run by a rather eccentric lady called Mrs. McQuivey. And she has some very, very elaborate costumes from all across time. And when she feels the person is right and the time is right, she suggests a costume for someone who comes in, and it may not be the costume that they were looking for when they entered. And when they go into one of the changing rooms, something happens.
I was sitting here thinking, don't tell too much, Sean, don't tell too much. Okay. All right. So, as you said, this story is completely revolved around the Gunpowder Plot. And so you provided me with this really awesome picture, which is a picture of all of the conspirators. Do you want to just give us, I don't know, in 30 seconds, what is the Gunpowder Plot and who are these guys?
Okay, well, these are guys who all went to the same hat shop. Okay, so
What did that, Sean?
What's that?
Buying hats. They bought hats together.
They all bought hats at McQuivey's. So yes, this book is set in 1605, and a couple of years before then, in 1603, King James I took over the throne from Elizabeth. And during Elizabeth's reign, there had been a big fraction between the Protestants and Catholics, and the Catholics were persecuted quite severely. And the Catholics had hoped that when James came into power that things would improve, but it didn't. And so a group of men, actually led by a man called Robert Gatsby. Everybody thinks that Guy Fawkes was the leader of this group. He wasn't. Robert Gatsby was the leader of the group, but he formed a group of men who had influence, had money, and had experience as a group of conspirators to bring down the government and get rid of the king. They wanted a clean slate so they could bring in Catholic leadership to help the Catholic cause. And the reason that it's called Guy Fawkes Night, and the reason that more people know about Guy Fawkes rather than Thomas Gatsby is that Guy Fawkes was the man who was in charge of the gunpowder. And the gunpowder was brought in and it was placed underneath the Houses of Parliament. And on November 5th, that was when King James and all of Parliament was reconvening. So all of the people in leadership in the UK were going to be in the same building at the same time. And so the plot was to blow up the building with all of that leadership in it. And Guy Fawkes Night is celebrated because that is the day that Guy Fawkes was caught, literally ready to light the fuse.
That's right. So we've got a picture here of the Houses of Parliament in the 1600s. Sean and I think this is pretty accurate. We'll have to hope. There's nobody here to fact check us, so we could say this is the 1600s Houses of Parliament. I mean, if on the cover of the book we do have probably what people are more familiar with the Houses of Parliament, Big Ben, and then all of the row of beautiful buildings that are there of the palace. But I'm curious if you probably know way more about this than me when I'm looking at this. So when it says the Abbey, is that Westminster Abbey?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's interesting to see how, like, I know when I'm in London, I feel like everything's at the same age, but it obviously isn't. By looking at
the Great Fire of London took out a huge number of buildings in London. And of course, during that era, a lot of the buildings were made of wood. And so it was really only things like the Abbey that were more stone that survived.
Right. Cool. And then that building behind the one that there's the hall. I don't recognize a building like that there. Is that still there, or is that?
No, I don't think so. I think most of the buildings there were destroyed.
Yeah.
And there are some buildings that a portion of them are the existing buildings, and then they built on, and it still looks really old to us. Like part of Westminster Abbey is older than the other part, and the whole Abbey looks old to us, but it wouldn't have been that way in the 1600s.
Yeah, cool. And I can see that they still like the sport of rowing on the Thames back in the 1600s. Maybe they're having their own little yacht race.
The Thames was their primary mode of transportation for everything, for business, for bringing products in, and for exporting, and for even getting across the river, because at this point in time there was only one bridge that crossed the Thames, and of course if you go to London now there are multiple bridges.
Yeah, when I was reading that, I was thinking, oh wow, I can't imagine just one bridge across the Thames.
Also remember that the population was significantly smaller as well.
For sure. I mean, I was thinking, gosh, the detours you'd have to make, right, to get across.
And that's why it took so long to get everywhere. That's right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's really cool. I had a lot of fun looking at this, and for me, I have to say, even though I knew the story of Guy Fawkes to some degree, it was for me, this is what I love about your books. I always love that you can pinpoint a point of history, and then you educate us all about it. There's things even me as a Brit that you write about, and I think I never knew that story, Sean, and so I love that you share this. So I'm going to jump forward. There was the arrest of Guy Fawkes. We're not going to dwell on that. That was just, I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that. But I want to talk about Guy Fawkes and Bonfire Night today. So obviously we still celebrate it. Our video right at the beginning is of a Bonfire Night celebration in Plymouth, which is on the south of England, this time last year. And so, you know, I had thought, wouldn't it be fun to go live to my sister's back garden and see them all celebrating? I don't think she would appreciate that, and it would be very chaotic. So we're just going to stick with some pictures, some still shots of Bonfire Night. And I think one thing I loved about this, and you'll see when I'm going to share some of my own photographs, but you can see how big these bonfires are. I'm not kidding. Like, these community bonfires, and even the one we had in our back garden when I was a kid, were pretty big.
Yeah, they collect the wood for weeks and weeks, and they just build this huge pyre.
Yeah. And then so here's the family traditions. Obviously, I don't know what happened to this slide. I have more pictures on it, but here's my daughter playing with the sparkler. So
Mm,
typically we'd have fireworks, sparklers, and a big
mm,
fire.
mhm.
And here's a picture of Penny for the Guy. So I did actually ask my family this morning, very last minute. It was like 20 minutes ago, and I said, "Are they still doing this? Are they still making penny for the guys?" And it was basically just a dummy of like you take your dad's old trousers and find an old shirt,
The
stuff it full
newspaper.
of something,
With the newspaper, yes.
newspaper in it, and then you'd sit in the street and beg for money. Now, I never did this myself, but I was
No, I
these
never
pictures
did
are very
too.
old.
I think it is something that was very popular years ago, and it's kind of died a little bit now. But I know that children, like you said, they would stuff clothes, and they would quite often put the guy in a wheelbarrow and wheel him around, calling "Penny for the Guy," and that was how they collected money to buy the fireworks.
Yeah. I tell you what, as I was researching all of this yesterday, just looking to see what parts of the UK was still doing what, it was interesting to see how I didn't even realize that there is like bonfire, um, what would you call it? Bonfire groups. And there's certain towns in the UK where they have parades and they have like at this on 5th of November, and it's all come from some cult of some kind. I was like, this is
Mhm,
really interesting, really cool. Where they'll have the bishop at the bonfire who's like dressed as Catholic priest and walks at the front, and then people
mm.
dressed as Guy Fawkes, and they actually had on one of them Anne Boleyn was there with her head under her arm. That was kind of fun. But yeah, it was really fun to find out even more about what people are doing today. But I don't know how common this is. And then I wanted to talk about the food because Sean, we know that food is part of this too. And
Mhm,
I just grabbed like I noticed that one of your posts in the online you'd mentioned something about different foods that you used to having. I feel like we were pretty basic. We had potatoes. We always had parking. I feel like somebody made it at
mhm,
church. We would have the parties at our house, and so people would bring things. But I feel like parking was a staple, which
mhm.
is kind of a mix of ginger and treacle. And I was kind of wondering if you can help me out on this because I don't know if we sell treacle in the United States. Oh,
The closest to treacle would probably be molasses here,
yeah, but I've never
because
tried to make it here. So
yeah, I haven't made it either. I have made treacle toffee, and I've used molasses, and then you have to tweak it a little bit, but it's
yeah.
probably the closest, yeah.
And these apples, I always think this is funny because I never really had them. I think a couple times I had a toffee apple, but the red stuff that's on the outside, I feel is kind of gross, and it was very hard and sticky. I prefer caramel apples, to be honest. I quite like the ones that we have here in the States, but
Mm.
yeah, this was an interesting. I don't even know where that came from, and maybe it was just time of year. But what else? What else? Kind of things did you eat on bonfire night?
We quite often had donuts, so we'd have donuts and, like, hot apple cider, kind of, a hot drink or hot chocolate. We'd have hot chocolate too. Um, I'm trying to remember.
My sister's on here, by the way. Louisa says Louisa's Sean's biggest fan in Europe.
I
She
love
takes the
I
prize.
love Louise. I've never met her, but I love her anyway.
Yeah, she's seen that she thinks the Brit kids are more interested in trick or treating than penny for the guy these days, which is
Mhm.
probably true.
Yeah, probably is. Yeah.
Awesome. So, finally, just to wrap this up, you did send me these pictures. Well, actually, I think you sent these to somebody else, but I was on the email and I thought, I'm going to bring these in because
Mm,
you've written about the Georgian period. We see Regency and Victorian stuff in proper romance all the time. Like, we're all really familiar with what that looks like. So, I wanted to just show people what the clothing of this era looks like. And actually,
mhm.
when I first saw this, I thought Three Musketeers.
No, exactly. So the men would either wear the Three Musketeer type hat, which is the tricone with the floppy feather,
Mhm.
or they would wear the stovetop hat, like the picture, the one that we had of the conspirators. And then the men would either have these really big, wide collars, quite often with lace on them, or the ruff that you can see around the women's neck in this picture. And the women would either have the ruff, or they would have something called a Medici collar, which was a collar that just kind of shot up like this around their neck. And I mean, I don't think the men look super uncomfortable, but I'm sorry, those ladies do not look like they're really comfortable to me.
I know. I feel like whenever I've seen this, either in a film or even in pictures, I mean, I was looking at it yesterday with Lauren, and I was saying, I can imagine them just being like this, like they can't even
Yes.
move the head very much. I'm like, ladies, do we think we should go back to this? I don't think so. I mean, how do you
Well,
eat?
it's
I don't know.
that,
I'm so messy. I feel like I'd be dropping food on my big collar, like
well,
every
yeah,
time I eat food.
exactly. And it's that tight bodice with the huge farthingale underneath that, I mean, honestly, I don't really know how they did much of anything. It would take practice to even get in and out of a chair, I think.
Yeah, maybe they just spent their days just looking posh, walking around. I don't
Yeah,
know.
just looking around, yes.
So yes, I mean, I'm so glad we're not in those days. I feel like we've come a long ways in our fashion, but it was just really interesting, and I wanted to give everybody a glimpse of that. All right, so I'm going to pull this off of the screen, and it's just the two of us here. And that we've just been having so much fun. I'm completely clueless to where I'm up to, but that's okay because that's how lives happen. So I wanted to ask you, Sian, to tell us, because obviously you've told us there was some time slip here, and you know, the costume shop enables Isla, who's the main character here, to show up not dressed in clothes from 2024, which is one good thing at least. What do you think? I know you kind of touched on how difficult it was to kind of like, as you're writing the story, you were thinking about modern day, and then I guess the 1600s and getting the lingo right. What would you say, apart from that, was probably the most difficult thing in doing this?
As far as writing it?
Yeah,
Well,
like your whole experience with this, even if it was research,
yeah, I really wanted to I wanted to get the story as accurate as I could. And so one of the challenges with bringing fictional characters into real history is getting the timeline right. And so I actually had a big piece of paper, and I had the days and the weeks all marked out from when things happened historically. And so I started with when he was captured, and I worked my way back, and then I had to fit the story into those time slots so that things happened when they really happened. And there's one little part in the story, and I mention it in the author's note, where I shrink what really happened by 3 days just so that it would work better, because I didn't think my readers wanted to go through 3 days of normalcy while they were waiting for the things to happen. But
Hey, I'd have taken more romance scenes, Sian. You could have put plenty more of those in.
so we could have just done 3 days of solid romance in the
Yes,
middle of the
3 days
excitement.
of dates.
Okay, I'm going to remember that for the next time. But
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest thing when I'm writing these historicals and I'm trying to be true to it. It's weaving it in such a way that it does stay true to what really happened. So.
Awesome. So I've got two friends of ours, and that are also massive readers of the Proper Romance series and Sian fans, because I feel like most of us are. And if you're not, you should be. So here's Marilee and Tasha. We're bringing them on. And the reason why I have these two is because they have been so lucky to have been able to read this extra early. So we're really tapping into these two. They're going to share. Tasha and Marilee are going to share. I'd love you to share how you feel about this story as Americans. The American hat on.
Yeah, no, seriously. I
didn't even show my flag. I got my British flag out today.
Oh, look at you. All right. She's going to bring out the sparklers inside the house pretty soon here.
Right.
I actually don't have any. Sometimes we save stuff for the 4th of July, and I don't think we do. I don't know. Maybe something in the garage. Anyway, go for it.
Well, I remember when Sian told me she was writing about Guy Fawkes, and my first question was, who? no idea who he was. And actually, a couple weeks before I read the book, I was in London on a trip at the Tower of London, and they had a sign all about Guy Fawkes, and he, you know, he part of the tour of everything that happened. And I texted Sean, I was like, guess what? So it was neat as somebody who'd never really heard of him, knew anything about the story, to read what happened. But what I loved is that Sean took this historical event, and, you know, there's some missing pieces of the puzzle as to what exactly what happened with a few parts. And so she uses those missing pieces and she weaves in this fictional story into the historical event. And I was captivated. I binge read the whole thing from start to finish. I could not put it down. It was just fascinating, both the historical stuff, and then of course you have this swoony romance going on, and then plus Isla's trying to figure out all this stuff, you know, going 400 years back into the past. So it was fantastic. I loved every single bit of it.
I agree. I remember when I first got ready to pick it up, I had talked to someone on the Proper Romance team and said, I need to study about Guy Fawkes before I pick this book up. And they're like, no. You don't need to read anything. Just read what Sean has written and you are good to go. And I knew nothing about this holiday. I'd never heard about him or the gunpowder plot at all. So everything I read was literally from this. And it was so fun. I also, when you get the book, read the author notes. That would it was mind blowing. The story was already incredible. And I was also hooked. I was super sick when I got to sit down with this book, and I was like delaying my cold medicine so that I wouldn't fall asleep, so that I could keep reading. Just could not put it down. And my husband was getting so upset with me, like, you have to get better. And I'm like, you don't understand. This is a Sian Ann Bessey book. Like, I will delay whatever it is. I will lose sleep so that I can finish it. And it totally 100% unputdownable. I think I shared to my Insta stories after I finished the book, and I said something to the fact, is it too soon to declare my 2005 favorite read of the year? That's how good this book is.
Oh, you guys are so kind.
And I have to say, it's kind of funny because Tasha and I were talking about this. Actually, no, I texted you, Sean, when I read the first bit before it even got put into a print arc, and then I wanted to wait to hold a book in my hand to actually finish it. And I finished it. And while I was reading, I don't know, towards the end, there was a moment in there where I was just like, Sean, what are you doing, Sean? I was just yelling to myself. And when I texted you my response in that moment in the book, and you said, Tasha had the exact same response.
I was texting the book. Like, what is happening? This is amazing. It was
so, you got us all. I feel like there's always plot twists and things like that, and it is incredible. And I always feel so biased because it's my history. And I love that Sean, you go there and you share these stories. They make them so unique. But I wanted to give Tasha, and I didn't tell either of them this, but do you have a question for Sean about this book? You've got to keep it spoiler free. Okay. Because only the four of us have read this. So
can I ask what is coming next? Because this is going to be a series.
Yes.
Get to know anything about. Does this follow? I'm trying so hard to not give any spoilers. You just tell me. Can we know anything about this series?
Spoilers so that nothing falls on you, right?
Probably.
Amy, am I allowed to say what's coming next?
I don't know, but I guess it's probably up to me, isn't it?
Yes. We're all passing the back here. Really.
Yeah, you're regretting asking me this.
We should be playing like Hangman right now to guess the theme of the next one. Or you can give them a hint, Sean. You can give them a hint. How about that?
All right, I'll give you a hint. The next McQueevy book is written. It is submitted, and it will go further back in time than this one. And it will involve a character that far more of you know than this one.
That's good. That's a great piece. I'm already ready to sign up for it. So,
and I'll add that it's really, really, really good.
Oh, yeah,
Have you read it already, Marilee? Oh my gosh, I haven't even seen it yet. Sean, where is my copy?
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Apparently
Sean
already
let
know.
me beta read it for her. And it was fantastic even in that. So
And rough draft. Yeah.
yep.
She's read the
You
rough
should be
draft.
excited. Very excited.
Okay, so do you have any questions, Marilee? Even though you seem to know all the things.
All the things. Without giving spoilers, it's really hard. I did text Sean some questions after I read it. Yeah, I don't have any that wouldn't spoil it for people, so I shouldn't say.
That's okay.
So everybody's going to have to just read it and then have a big question session afterwards. How about that?
Yes.
And let's just talk about the cover for a minute, because we haven't had this conversation. This cover is to absolutely die for. I mean, we went so back and forth with different ideas and concepts at Shadow Mountain, and I just trying to portray time travel and the modern era and like the contemporary time period, and then like back in the 1600s, like trying to get that on a cover is kind of a challenge. To be able to, I don't know if people can, there is an hourglass on the cover, it's kind of hidden behind the smoke there, but when I saw this concept, I'd seen a few, and because this was so dear to my heart, it was so hard. I was like, just not it. It's just not it. And then when I saw this one, I was like, that is it. This is the cover. It was so hard to get there. And then I was texting Sean, and because she was so worried about this too. And I said, you are going to love it. Stop worrying. It is amazing.
So all of you readers who feel bad that we've read and you haven't, that's how I felt about the cover, because she'd seen it and I hadn't.
Oh, well, for those of you who are on here today, we're going to let you know, and we'll put this all out on Proper Romance and Shadow Mountain anyway, but there is a special pre-order price that is kicked off yesterday, and it will last for the whole of November at the very least, and there will be a pre-order on Kindle for $2.99, which we were talking about this. I don't think Shadow Mountain has ever done a pre-order price that low on a book. So
yeah,
get it ordered on your Kindle for $2.99.
It'll be
we'll have links and everything for you there. And also, actually, Tasha, you might have more information about this, but we have something really cool that's going to happen for all of you who are sitting there thinking, oh, we're so jealous and we've missed all of this. You're going to have the opportunity to read the first chapter of this book over the next how many days?
9
days. You can be able to read.
Really 10
okay,
days.
Really 10. And so I'm going to let Tasha tell you a bit about that, because she knows more. She's been helping get that set up. But this is an Instagram. If you're on Instagram, make sure that you check out our post, because we're going to have all of the details on there and who you need to be following to get the whole first chapter. So why don't you go ahead and give that information?
All right. So if you're following Proper Romance, there was a post that went live yesterday that has a list of every Bookstagrammer who is participating. We're serializing the entire first chapter, so each Bookstagrammer will be a different day. So tomorrow you'll need to go to that Bookstagrammer's page and you'll start getting snippets until you finish the entire first chapter. It's so good. I'm so excited. I think I have the first chapter memorized from putting this together.
Tasha can quote the first paragraph for us. No,
yeah, it is so good.
And if you're a binge watcher or a binge reader like I am, maybe you just wait 10 days and then you can read them all together and you don't have to wait. But
there are also giveaways happening on each one. So you can enter a giveaway on every single page. That'll be happening 24-hour giveaways for each host that's hosting one of the parts of chapter 1.
And this is the giveaway. So we've got, is it 9-10 opportunities? 9 opportunities to win this.
We'll be able to read it early. The whole thing, not just the first chapter.
So there's another. If you want to read the first chapter, there's 9 opportunities, you guys, to win a copy so you can finish the entire thing and be as excited as we are for April to come around. So
and then message all of us after you've read it so we can chat about it.
We'll have a private chat where we can all gossip about the interior of this story. And I just have to say, I've got to say this because Sean is always saying that she's no good at the romance. If you follow Sean and
Not true.
Tracy and
It's not that
Sarah
I'm no good at it.
and
I just
Esther,
really struggle with kissing scenes.
you will know that the three of them always feel like Esther is the queen of the writing the romance scenes amongst the four of them. I beg to differ in this show. Not in this show. I watch too many shows. In this book, the meet cute in this book was crazy. I was like, Sean!
Well, good. I'm
I'm
glad.
not giving any more information. I was just saying it was so unlike Sean.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like I texted you to say no more complaining because you did an incredible job in that moment. You're great.
Thank you.
I
Well, I hope everyone will love it.
Awesome.
They will.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap this up. We could sit talking about this all day long. So everyone in the UK, enjoy your bonfires. Stay safe. I probably will have one tonight. Are you planning on having one, Sean, in your back garden?
I actually hadn't. We had our first little skiff of snow yesterday, and I'm not quite sure if I'm ready for a bonfire.
Well, we've been clearing out the house, so we actually have quite a bit of wood to burn. So I think we will be having a fire today. Louise is telling me to calm down. That is never going to happen because when I'm reading Sean, I don't calm down.
Well, you don't calm down very often, period. But yeah.
Well, that's true. That is true. Those of you who know me, I'm pretty live wired. But anyways, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us. If you're watching this delayed, that's okay.
Everyone.
And actually, I just decided we are going to have a 10th giveaway because I'm going to give one away too. Just for you guys hanging out and commenting. So if you're watching this delayed, don't worry. We're not going to pick a winner till, let's say, next Monday. That would be great. That gives you lots of time to get on here, write some comments, and we will pick a winner at random and announce that next Monday. And we will post a post in there with all of the links and all the information you need to know for the pre-order and for the Instagram serialization of the first chapter, which is so exciting. I have to say, when we were talking about how much we were going to reveal, I was a little worried, but the whole first chapter was perfect. You know, you may hate us at the end because we leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger, but
Yeah.
that's all right. These guys read Tracy Abramson books and they know what cliffhangers feel like.
That's right. It's not nearly as bad as Tracy's cliffhanger, I promise. And
Yes.
you don't have to wait as long.
It's going to be out before you know it. Okay, so do all the things, follow the links. Thanks for coming. Good to see you.
Yes, and have fun with it.